You know, real history, the kind that changes how you see everything, it's rarely found in some grand declaration or a famous speech. Most of the time it's hiding, tucked away in the rustle of old paper, in the margins of some dusty ledger, or maybe a forgotten land grant. And every once in a while, one of those documents changes the whole story.
That's a quote from our source, a self-described old Estreator. And man, what a way to put it. It's that exact moment. The moment a seemingly tiny detail blows the doors off a much bigger, much more hidden story. And today, we're going to follow that clue. So I want you to think of this whole thing as an investigation. We're about to piece together a puzzle that spans almost 400 years, connecting a simple ferryman in colonial Pennsylvania all the way back to the bloody battlefields of Tudor England. Okay, let's dive in. Our investigation kicks off with this first piece of evidence, a land warrant from 1682. Now, on the surface, it looks pretty boring. It's just a simple grant for a chunk of land on the Schuylkill River given to a guy named John Gardner. But as you're about to see, the real story, well, it's hidden right there in the details.
Now, you have to understand, our source is looking at this document with a very unique set of eyes. As an Estreator, his whole job is to trace property and rights all the way back to their origins. These guys are trained to spot the weird stuff, the little phrases that don't quite add up, and this warrant is absolutely full of them.
So let's break this down. John Gardner gets 500 acres right at a critical river crossing. And not just the land, he gets the rights to run a ferry, a tavern, and a trading post. I mean, that's a monopoly on all the local transport and commerce. But here's the real head-scratcher. The phrase that started it all, it was awarded for ancient services to William Penn. Ancient? What kind of services could be so ancient and so important that they'd be worth this much?
Okay, so a ferry. Big deal, right? How does that become the key to something so much bigger? Well, as we're about to see, this was no ordinary ferry. It was a crucial link in a very cynical transatlantic commercial loop. This was never just about moving people across a river. It was about building an empire from the ground up.
And this is where it gets really clever. This chart shows the closed economic circuit the Gardiner Syndicate built. They'd get furs from native tribes in Pennsylvania, ship them down to their own tanneries in Barbados, and then the payment would come back as rum from their own distilleries. And what did they do with that rum? They traded it right back to the very same tribes. It was a perfect, self-contained profit machine.
So here's the kicker. This gave them an absolutely massive competitive advantage. You see, William Penn's Quakers had officially banned trading alcohol with the native tribes, but the Gardners and their allies, guys like the famous traders George Croghan and James Latorte, they had no problem with it. They were willing to deal in the one thing the official powers wouldn't touch, and by doing so, they basically cornered the entire market.
Now, you'd think a scheme this specific would just be a Pennsylvania thing, right? Wrong. This whole pattern, controlling key locations, leveraging illicit trade, it became their blueprint. A blueprint they replicated on a new and much, much bloodier frontier.
So let's jump forward in time. Way forward. A century and a half to the 1830s American West. We're on the Missouri River now. The names were a little different, the location has definitely changed, but the Gardner method, oh, it's unmistakable.
And check this out. It's the exact same playbook, just upgraded for a more violent era. In 1682, John Gardner controlled a river crossing and used rum as his leverage. Fast forward to 1833, and his descendant, Johnson Gardner, is controlling a trading post on the Missouri. Only now, instead of just rum, he's using outright violence to drive out huge competitors like the Hudson's Bay Company. He even asserts his dominance by brutally avenging his allies, like the famous mountain man Hugh Glass. The method is identical: control the logistics, crush the competition, and rule the trade.
And it doesn't stop there. By the time of the Civil War, the Gardner method has basically aligned with official U.S. policy. Another descendant, Washington Walker Gardner, is part of a unit that gets pulled from the Battle of Vicksburg and sent with a new mission: to enforce the removal of Sioux tribes onto reservations. The family was now helping to clear the very lands their ancestors had been exploiting for generations.
Which of course brings us all the way back to our original question. What were those ancient services that got mentioned in that 1682 warrant? Where did this family, this syndicate, with a centuries-long plan for controlling river-based empires, actually begin? To answer that, we have to pull the thread all the way back. I mean, all the way. Not just decades, but centuries, to the final bloody battle that ended the Wars of the Roses.
All right, let's just rewind this whole story. From the Dakota Territory in 1863, fly backwards past the Missouri River in 1833, past that ferry on the Schuylkill in 1682, all the way back to a muddy field in England in the year 1485. This is it. This is the source. This is where those ancient rights were forged in blood.
Okay, so get this. The family played a decisive two-pronged role in the coup that put the Tudor dynasty on the throne. The day before the battle, Sir Thomas Gardner gets himself arrested for starting a riot specifically designed to destabilize King Richard's forces. Then, on the day of the battle itself, his kinsman, Sir William, personally kills King Richard III with a poleaxe. And for these services, what happens? Sir Thomas gets a suspiciously fast pardon from the brand new king. This act of king-making, that is the origin of their power.
All right, let's connect these threads one last time. Let's see how a secret forged in battle was literally exported across an ocean and then meticulously executed for centuries.
I mean, this table just lays it all out, plain as day. It's an unbroken chain. It starts at Bosworth Field, where strategic violence and securing royal favor became their ancient rights. From there, their estate back in England is used as a logistics hub, a launch pad for migrating to the New World, even using alliances with groups like the Quakers for cover. And finally, that method is perfected in Pennsylvania, creating the exact blueprint they would use to conquer the American frontier.
Theirs was an empire of rivers. They understood, maybe better than anyone, that whoever controlled the waterways controlled the flow of goods, money, and ultimately power. From the Thames in London, their influence spread all the way to the Schuylkill, then the Susquehanna, and finally to the Missouri.
And it all brings us to this one final thought. The Gardiner Syndicate operated for centuries, and its entire story was just hidden in plain sight, scattered across thousands of documents in archives. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other histories, what other empires are just lying there dormant in the archives, waiting for someone to find that one single clue that brings it all to light?